Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we are going to review a few articles, a few posts about people talking about the differences between Webflow and Squarespace. And the reason I wanted to make this video is because Webflow published an article talking about the differences, and from a Squarespace perspective, from my background, I want to look at what they said is better on Webflow versus Squarespace. And recently I have designed 2 or 3 websites on Webflow with an expert helping me, a Webflow expert helping me. So I'm gonna just speak to all the different factors that I've seen, what I know, and probably try to help you make a decision on choosing Webflow or Squarespace, why you should choose either platform, and why you should probably stay away from either platform. The major concerns. I don't get into the weeds of little details. I probably will stay away from that, but I will cover topics that will help you make a clear decision on which platform to start with. Okay, so let's begin. You take a look at my screen here, you see Webflow.com versus Squarespace. Okay, Webflow versus Squarespace. They call out a few things. I'm gonna review a few articles. Now, this is written on Webflow's site, so we already know there's a bias, but let's just be clear. They try to do their best to be as objective and unbiased as possible. First and foremost, they have this graph here, beautiful as it does come in, so I'll give them that. Design and code. How you build your site matters. Stand out by starting from scratch with Webflow. This graph, this chart here says design freedom. Webflow, you can create whatever design you have in mind or use a template. This is very true. You can design whatever you want in Webflow. There is a big caveat here though. If you go into Webflow and you have no idea what a class is or what a div is or what a section versus a container is, you are going to be lost. Especially if you are a small business owner and you just want to get a site up and running, you'll have full design freedom, but you're gonna have to get technically savvy and understand a lot more about Webflow. So they do point to the fact that design freedom, yes, I give it to Webflow 100%. You could basically do anything in Webflow. A good example of this is sometimes people recreate Apple's landing pages for the iPad or the iPhone in Webflow. To do that in Squarespace would be the worst decision ever. It would be so difficult to do. But with Webflow, it's very easy to do. It's straightforward. The process is clear that you can get there if you want. The challenge with design in Squarespace that could come up is that if you want to customize it, you're technically going against the template to customize it. So now you're coding to go against code, which just gets complicated at times. However, we will comment on the simplicity of use with Squarespace. Next, they cover animations and interactions. Obviously, this is a huge one. Webflow is gonna be 100 times easier to set up animations than Squarespace. However, again, this is a big deal that they don't really emphasize. If you've never used, for example, Photoshop or Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, your first time in there is really confusing. You definitely have to learn how the software works to be able to utilize it to its fullest. So they say animations are easy, but sometimes they're not. You have to set up a lot of different features within Webflow. At the end of the day, are hard to understand if you're coming from zero knowledge. Okay, so I'm gonna go off of the blog post for a moment and we're gonna talk a little bit about this, right? So design and interactions. Number one, yes, you are able to control the design however you like, adjust items as you like. This is one thing I noticed that I have a bit of experience in this world, but for someone who has no experience in this world, you're gonna get ultra confused quickly. It's easy to get really confused very fast. So let's take a look at one of these items. If you look in here, this is how the site is set up on this like panel, move over, this stuff. So we set up every single one of these items. You could see here, there's this section called main, and then there's a section here that's called gallery section, and then container, and then all this other stuff. But let's take a look. If I click on main, this is where you'll get really confused. You'll need to know what you need to set up for a main versus a section versus a container versus a div versus a div within a div. If you're confused, I'm telling you, this is something you'll want to learn. And I do have a resource for you at the end of this to help you learn this in the best way possible. It's how I learned it. and I'll walk you through that later. But for now, take a look here. Literally, you have all these settings, and this is where it gets really confusing. Right now, you have type settings for main. This is just an example, right? You have type settings for main, but then if you go to, let's say, gallery section, well, you're gonna have type settings again, and then you're gonna have type settings for container, and then section, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then everything in it. Why is that confusing? Well, if you set it at the wrong level, and then you have to set it again at another level, you have to know where to set things properly. Otherwise, it's really confusing. Now let's take a look at an animation. This is an animation. I don't know why I did air quotes, but first of all, you can't see the animations in the editor. You have to go to a live preview mode, and you'll see here, if I scroll over this, you'll see this little button shows up. And then when you hover over it, this on animation, it's a hover effect, it turns blue. So there's a difference between the hover effect and the actual animation. But when you hover over any of the screenshots here, let me actually make this wider again. If you hover over any of the screenshots, you'll see that shows up. But in the actual editor, they always just sit there. So that's a bit interesting. Now let's take a look at the actual animation. So you have to figure this out. And this type of design, you'll see these are all animations we've set up. You'll see you have to figure this out. So start here and do it, then do this, the opacity changes, and then change it within 0.4 milliseconds or 400 milliseconds to get this set up. And then you have to have an animation in and an animation out. And then you have to make sure that you set it the right way. So if it's sliding in from the left or something, it has to, the block itself has to have overflow hidden. And there's these little things. And yes, you could learn it. Webflow has university, it has all this stuff. But sometimes you run into a problem that no one else discusses, or it's a little bit off. It could get complicated. That's all I want to say. So if you want ultimate design freedom, you're gonna deal with a higher level of complexity versus Squarespace. And I know I've spent a lot of time on this, but this is a really important point. Webflow makes itself look, and I do believe you can do a lot in it, so I'm not disregarding that. But they make it look like it's easy just to, click, you just could set up anything you want. You can, but you have to have understanding of what divs are and how they work together, and then how to even set up the interactions. And if you want to get really complicated interactions, well, it'll build quickly. So this is where I think Webflow did a really great job of communicating user friendliness. Squarespace emphasizes user friendliness at the expense of flexibility. That's so funny that that's how they said it. Squarespace emphasizes user friendliness for people who don't want to become web developers. Okay, this is one thing. I worked with an expert to create the mobile menu. So you'll see this menu up here. Let me just go to full screen mode. This is really small. There we go. So the menu's like this, and then here you'll see this becomes the hamburger menu, and then the items show up here. It's really big in that format. But in say this format, it shows up like this. So it's cool, I like it. It was complex to set up. It was obnoxiously complex to set up. I remember I was setting up a slideshow and the arrows were so hard to control. I was so thrown off by that. I felt like they make some stuff really easy to do that you can't do in Squarespace. Just put that there, put that there. But then some things are really hard. Out of the box, Squarespace's navigation is always going to work. Their mobile navigation will always work. Out of the box, you don't have to do a thing, it'll always work. And that's actually really important. To design that could take a lot of work. So let's go back here. Webflow, that makes it easier for most people, but frustrating for creatives who want something unique. Totally true. If you want highly customized, highly unique, you're gonna go to Webflow. You're gonna pay more, but Webflow is ideal. Squarespace, for a business owner, this is what I like to support the most. At the end of the day, I don't care what platform you use, but what I like to support is business owners not becoming web developers. Your job isn't to become a web developer. Your job is to run your business. And so you need a website that works. Now, let's take a look. Templates. While Squarespace offers a wealth of gorgeous templates, Webflow's templates are both beautiful and far more customizable. At the end of the day, a beautiful website is not dependent on how customized it is. I want to make that so clear. It's a beautiful website is not beautiful because it's so customized. A beautiful website could actually be a template, but you've utilized it. You have colors, you have font, you have a feel, you have your own format to it, but it's not beautiful because it's so customized. And I just want to make that point, templates in Squarespace, especially 7.1, they've made the entire site build process really easy to get up and running quickly and have a beautiful site that's easy to edit after the fact Will you lack some controls in customizing certain things? Yes. And at this point, I want to make this statement. Now, if you are building a blog, a database, a directory, this will be important for you. If you're creating a blog, Squarespace or Webflow could work really well for you. If you want to highly customize the blog, it's really good to go to Webflow. If you want to perhaps, let's go back to my site. This is design flow that we have. It's actually funny. This is marrying all of it. This is a place to find Squarespace inspiration, website inspiration that I built on Webflow. Let's do this. Okay, so this is technically a blog, or what you would call the CMS. A CMS gives you the ability to create a database. If you use Notion, you would understand this idea of like databases. You could create a database that has certain properties, and then you could call those properties to show up anywhere on the site. It's a really powerful feature. It's one of the reasons I truly love Webflow. It offers, outside of the customizable animations, interactions that you could design on Webflow, one of the main features is the customizability, if that's a word, on Webflow. We were able to create this entire setup, and as you can see here, like everything is designed the way I want it. So for example, with Squarespace, there's 7.0 and there's 7.1. Here you could see that I put 7.0. We get to mark any site as 7.0 or 7.1. The business name goes here, a little description goes here. We could connect it to the designer. And then if you go to the designer, so let me go down, like click on the designer, you'll see here that now we have this design page. This is made how we want. This part's sticky. It's like full control. You won't be able to do this in Squarespace. Hands down, you won't be able to. This is really customized and to our liking. The little interaction there that we have. There's these features here, and then you could click into one of these. So then I click into the site, and then I could see the site, you know, and there's this whole experience, and I could click back to the designer page. I could click on the tags and then go search that specific tag. So if I go here, it'll take me to the specific tag, and I could see more about the site, more websites within that tag. So there's a lot of customizability with the CMS. If you're trying to create a directory or a really advanced blog, Webflow is going to give you a lot of that function, and the SEO capability is really nice as well, which I think we're going to touch on now. Pricing is fairly the same. It truly is. If you're building sites for clients, they tell you that it could be free, but if you're just building one site as a business owner, freelancer, whatever that may be, you're trying to show your portfolio, you're going to pay just about the same price. SEO and content marketing, CMS and blogging. So we just talked about that a little bit. The customizability of the CMS is much more advanced in Webflow, but out of the box, Squarespace is amazing and it offers a bunch of great tools. You could set things up for SEO purposes, and you could really have a beautiful advanced blog on Squarespace. This is totally like, obviously this is Webflow, so they're gonna be really biased, but truly I would put the graph maybe honestly in the center, because if you want advanced CMS options, yeah, but blogging Squarespace is gonna be way easier. To set up a blog in Webflow, the initial setup, and then getting the content published, and even customizing sections on a blog, you have to use like a rich text format, then you have to actually design every single component of it. There's a lot more steps to get started. If you're a professional Webflow expert, it's gonna be easy for you. But for somebody starting a new business, you're gonna have to design bullet lists. You're gonna have to design how like the photos show up or other sections in the page show up, the width of the page and other elements there. Not saying it's bad, but that there is a lot more to consider. Let's see what this is. Dynamic product and content integration. Seamlessly feature your products within your content, so every blog post, lookbook, and case study becomes a sales page. Oh, I see. Okay, so if we go back to the idea, the dynamic product and content integration, this is truly much better on Webflow. Squarespace offers some options. They're getting at it here that you can, say you have a blog post and you want to add 2 or 3 products to it, you can, but it's much more customizable to look and feel on Webflow. SEO, Webflow, I would disagree. Webflow gives you all the tools you need to rise to the top of relevant search results. Webflow sites load fast and are mobile friendly by default and give you all the content tools you need. They are not mobile friendly by default. In some ways they are, in some ways they are not. That whole thing I explained to you about the mobile menu, if you don't get that right, that's not mobile friendly. That the user experience is not mobile friendly. Maybe the code is, but the user experience is not. Give you all the content tools you need to give people the answers they're looking for. Truly, like designing this and then designing it like this for like a tablet view and then mobile and like going down, it took a bit of work to get the right feel. So it's not just, oh, you design it like this and it perfectly goes down. Squarespace does. Squarespace will always, they always stack things like you read a book. Top to bottom, left to right. So they will always stack things the right way. So if you set up 2 sections on your page on Squarespace, it'll always put the section on the left on top of it, just like a book. If the pages was to get thinned out, it would still read properly. So with Squarespace, that's native, you don't have to force it. Here, you have to understand how to set up sections with flex boxes and making sure that the different section containers work well. So right now it's a display as a block display, that's all good to go. And then the sections have different padding, and then this is also a block display, but the grid to the left is a flex child of this block display. So you have to specify certain things and you have to know what to specify so that it works in different formats. And it truly requires understanding how the web works or how websites work to bring that to life. Now, I've been talking a lot and going through a lot of these details, so I'm just gonna do a little roundup. And then from there, I'm gonna continue to talk about some other options out there. This is a pretty in-depth review from my experience, again, as a Squarespace expert who over the last few months has worked with a Webflow expert to design a few sites on Webflow, as you're looking at one of them now. This is my take on all of this content. So let's see what else they have here. And I think we're just about there. Marketing integrations, hey, they actually called that out. Also, I would say e-commerce as of right now is gonna be easier on Squarespace. Yes, you could start e-commerce, but again, some of the tools and features are still being built out on Webflow. I'd say it this way, actually. This is probably an understatement because I don't understand it fully. I don't have a lot of experience with it, so don't quote me on this part, but Webflow just released e-commerce like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. So Squarespace has been doing e-commerce for 10 years plus, and Webflow just started doing it recently. Worth considering on that. Buyer experience, customizability, they're just highlighting that. Customizable cart, yes, that's true. You could customize the cart more. The store owner experience, they're saying this is both platforms offer intuitive interface for updating your site's content. That's a good point. So once your site's built, let's imagine you build your site with an expert and then you want to manage it. To update content is easy. To change content, to change structure or pages in Webflow is going to be way more difficult than in Squarespace. Out the door, I would just clearly say that. Order management, I don't know Webflow, so I can't comment on that. For e-commerce, transaction emails, they gave them transaction emails. Payment options, they both offer the same payment options. So that's really cool. Yeah, they make this look so easy, but sometimes this is just way more complicated, and it's a bit unfortunate sometimes how complicated it is. Okay, so a lot more details here. Okay, so that's a full breakdown. So you could come to this page and see more, but now I'm gonna look at it from a few other angles and viewpoints. So this is Squarespace Themes. I've worked with Omari a bunch of times, and so he's coming from a Squarespace perspective. And as he talks through this, there's a few things he touches on that I think are important to highlight. So he covers over the main things on both platforms. Let's go to the bottom actually, and I'm gonna touch on this. Beyond plans. He says this really well, so I give him full credit. Who wins, Squarespace or Webflow? It depends on your needs. If you're an agency or professional designer, Webflow has a huge range of features available and good possibilities for customization. However, it is complex, and if you want to dig into more advanced features, you'll need some coding knowledge. Like I was saying before, you're gonna need to know how the web works, what a div is, what a container and a section is, and how they work together to create the sections you want. Squarespace is an excellent platform for small to medium-sized businesses of all types. Designers will appreciate the contemporary designs and features, while the end user looking to create their first site will appreciate its relevant simplicity compared to Webflow. For us, this makes Squarespace a winner. But what about you? Well done, well done. And one thing I would say too is if you go to Squarespace, there are a few websites that you could use to find plugins that really make Squarespace powerful. One of them being Squarespace Themes. I'll link it down below. It will probably be an affiliate link just to make that clear, but he has a bunch of amazing plugins that you could use. The sidebar, I love the Lightbox plugin. You could use this to show information really quickly and easily. I've worked with them a bunch of times. I didn't even realize this until I was making this video, but as of right now, there's like a sale on these plugins. And you could see here, where'd it go? Did I miss it? Right here. This is actually my recommendation. So I totally recommend, thank you for using this, Omari, if you ever watch this, but totally recommend their plugins for your site, especially if you do e-commerce. They have amazing plugins and amazing support to help you get them integrated into your website. Okay, let's take a look at one or two more. Actually, I'm gonna go to Flux. So this is Flux Academy, teaches people how to use Webflow. Again, from the Webflow perspective. They summarize this well. Webflow and Squarespace are no-code visual website building tools, but which one is better? Let's talk about it. Okay, so they go through some like pros and cons in the list: 24/7 customer support, URL directs. Cool. Cons of using Squarespace: expensive recurring pricing, very true. Limited design, yes, true. Poor website editor usability, don't necessarily agree. Slow website load speeds. Okay, website load speed is really interesting. I'm writing an article right now about website load speed. Even google.com loads slow to website load speed criteria. So it's one of those things that I'm actually learning to consider a little bit less, or just figure out how to think about it a little bit more in a broad perspective. Anyway, that's kind of a whole side note, a whole different video on its own. What is Webflow? So he covers it here, and reasons to use Webflow, cool. Fully customizable, yes. Design responsively with ease, yes. You could use these, yep. Flex boxes, user-friendly CMS interface, very customizable blogging, e-commerce CMS features. Totally agree with that. Custom CSS settings. Yes, you could set up this. You could do this in Squarespace as well. Nothing really sticks out to me right now. That's additional information that would be useful for you. So I'll just leave that there. And then let's touch on this one. I like this article. This is Austin Gray. I've never seen any of his content before, but this looks good. So Squarespace pros and cons. Pros: templates, ease of learning, integration friendly. Yes, templates, truly on 7.1, there are no templates. They show you 40 different visual differences, but if you use anything on Squarespace 7.1, you get all the features of all the other templates. With Webflow, if you buy one template, you don't get the features of another template because it's actually what they coded and designed specifically. So it's a little bit different in that way. Cons: block style design. Yeah, this is really well written, block style design. So with Squarespace, you're designing everything as blocks. You put one block in, then you put another block, you put blocks next to each other, all of that. But if you want to customize that further, things do get complicated. If you want blocks to overlap, it's a little bit difficult. If you want blocks to do something else, you really can't. It's truly like a book, top to bottom, left to right. As you read a page is how it organizes the content. Okay, now let's take a look. Why Webflow? Learning how to design in Webflow, cool. Why Webflow over Squarespace? Okay, why Webflow over Squarespace? I really like this, but again, this is the point I'm trying to make in this video. If you're a small business owner and you don't want to learn how to design a website, you just want a beautiful website, Squarespace out the box is going to get you there very quickly. If you do a few key design things as you get started, make sure you get the font set up and the colors right, you can do everything else fairly quickly. From there, if you want to learn a relevant skill like Webflow, like I personally like that because I like web design, I like learning new software. Awesome, that's for you. Webflow is amazing. And this will break down into actually the next part of the video. So I gave a shout out to Squarespace Themes for their plugins. There's also Ghost plugins. You could check that out. I think it's ghostplugins.com for Squarespace. But for Webflow, I'm gonna shout out Noah because Noah was the expert I mentioned earlier, the Webflow expert that really helped me get my site to the next level when I was working on Webflow. Number one, he taught me how to think about Webflow and what to use and what not to use and how to do it and all of that. But his job is to train you and mentor you to get better. He'll help you design stuff and help you get through content. It's not, this myflowmate is not for specifically, as I found out, it's not to have him design the site for you. It's for him to teach you how to design sites, how to structure content, how to create classes, and how to build out sections you want. So you'll see here, element structuring, responsive design, build components, custom interactions, Webflow, symbols, CMS structure, all of that, real-time help. And the beauty of this is that literally it's so easy to do. You just come in here and you could book a time and book it on the calendar literally immediately. I booked probably 20 hours with him over the course of a few weeks to really understand Webflow and get the full experience so I could build out design flow and have a full user experience. There's a few kinks that I want to work out on this site, but for the most part, it is all there. One other thing I want to say is we don't have a page right now, but one day it will be in the description below. We are creating our own version of, say, this, a little bit different. He trains you how to do this. For Squarespace, we're going to be creating a way for people to connect with myself or anyone on my team who's a Squarespace expert to do consultations and do it by the minute. So it's not necessarily something where we sit down and do a screen share together, but it is something that where we can sit down and have a conversation. Hey, I want to set up a blog, or I want to set up a portfolio, and I want it to do this, this, and that. And I want it to have these components. I've thought about this process so many times that I could walk you through it in a few seconds and allow you to understand how to get it set up, and or if it's just going to be a headache to try to set up in Squarespace. So if you're looking to start, check out the links below. There will be a link there soon for Spacebar Agency where you could connect with us and just pay per the minute, and literally either via text, phone, or video. It may change because we're still setting it up, but as of right now, we have all those options. You could send in a request and we could hop on chat, text, or video and talk through it and get you the advice, the tips, the knowledge, whatever you need to make sure you could handle these challenges. All right, so thank you. Please let me know if you have any questions below. If you do have any questions, you leave them below. I will try to respond to them directly so it can help other people as well. If you're trying to decide on Webflow versus Squarespace, the big consideration at the end of the day is if you want to sign up quickly and you don't want to learn coding, if you don't want to learn how a website works in the back end, go for Squarespace. If you want to customize and have a really fun interactive site, go for Webflow. With that, thank you for watching. Please, if you like this content, if you got to the end of this video, please hit that like button, subscribe, and while you're at it, hit the notification bell. When you hit the like button, it lets me know that you got value from this video. All right, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.